are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for
keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Friday, August 16th. We have a lot to cover on the show today. Before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys that if you want to tip or donate and get your comments recognized on the show, hit the $ on the chat menu to qualify for a super chat, and it'll highlight your comment. I will acknowledge it during the live broadcast, and it's just a great way to make it, the show more lively, make it more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. And it's a lot easier than clicking on the link, which will take you to a separate site and take you off the video. You could still do that. The link is gsmcpodcast.net, but super chat makes it easier. So if you do that, we greatly appreciate that, as well as you guys always tuning in and watching our content each and every day. So with that being said, now let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. So we are going to start off the show. We're going to recap last night's preseason game between the Eagles and the Patriots, some of my takeaways from that game. Then we will take a look at the matchups for this weekend, all the preseason matchups. We have pretty much no games tonight, but we got games Saturday and then a couple on Sunday, so we'll get into that. We'll talk about a couple of things regarding Brandon Ayuk, as well as Matt Milano of the Buffalo Bills being out indefinitely with a torn biceps. So we'll get into that. Actually, that's the fourth part of the show. The third part of the show is actually talking about the Falcons. Justin Simmons signed with the Falcons. So another move that they made on the defensive side of the ball, so I'll get into that. And then we'll talk about Ayuk and Matt Milano. And then in the final part of the show, I'll get into ranking the wide receiver groups for the AFC North. So let's get into the first topic, which is discussing the preseason game from last night. So low-scoring game. The Eagles got the victory, winning 14-13 over the Patriots. And some of my takeaways, I did bring up yesterday during the show how the Patriots' offensive line was struggling against the Eagles' defensive line during their joint practices. And, yeah, it definitely showed during the game yesterday. But even on the broadcast, the Patriots broadcasters, they were even saying, the McCourty brothers were there, of course. They were even saying that, the Eagles are going to be a very good team this year, and that is part of the problem. But the Eagles did end up finishing with 3 sacks, but it just seemed like, they were having their way with the Patriots' offensive line. So that's one of my takeaways, and that's something that, the Patriots are going to have to tighten up during the season, because otherwise their quarterbacks are going to have absolutely no time to throw whatsoever. But again, I've said it too. I think the Eagles are going to be really good this year. Although I did see, some people have the Eagles winning like 9 games. I think the Eagles are going to be one of the best teams in the NFL again. But only time will tell. But yeah, that's one takeaway. Also, Drake May did play a little bit more yesterday, and at times he did look good. He did have a rushing touchdown in this game. That was a good play. But he also, his stats could have been better, because he did go 6 of 11 for 47 yards. But his stats definitely could have been better, because he did have a pass that he threw. It was a really good pass. And it looked like Javon Baker was going to haul it in, but he ended up dropping it and ended up not making the play. But it still looked like, it was still a good play, and he had a clean pocket to throw it, but ended up that ended up being an incompletion. So that was unfortunate to see, but his stats could have been better. But there was that, and again, made a couple of good throws. But like I said, finished 6 of 11 for 47 yards. Every quarterback played. Jacoby Brissett started the game, and the Patriots put together a nice drive. They got into the red zone, but Jacoby Brissett threw an interception in the end zone, and that got returned. So the Patriots didn't get any points out of that. But the scoring plays, Jake Elliott had a 42-yard field goal. Joey Sly had a 51-yard field goal. Like I said, Drake May had the rushing touchdown from 4 yards out. Jake Elliott had another field goal. Joey Sly had another field goal. So it was 13-6 Patriots, and then the Eagles were able to get a touchdown late in the game. They had a rushing touchdown by one of their running backs, Milton, from 1 yard out. Then they went for the 2-point conversion, and it was Kendall Milton. They went for the 2-point conversion, and they got it, and they ended up winning 14-13. The Patriots ended up putting in Bailey Zappi, and it was a botched snap that the Eagles ended up recovering on the last drive of the game, and that was the end of it. The Patriots that was one of the turnovers. So I think it was that, and then the interception. Those were 2 turnovers from the Patriots. And then Kenny Pickett on the other side for the Eagles, he went 11 of 13 for 67 yards. A lot of short passes, nothing really down the field. Tanner McKee actually didn't look that bad for the Eagles. He went 15 of 19 for 140 yards. Will Greer went 3 of 5 for 35 yards. Their leading rusher was Tyrion Davis-Price, the former San Francisco 49er. But that's the rundown from the game. Like I said, and there were a couple of nice plays Patriots receivers made. I know Jalen Polk, he made he caught a short pass that looked like that it wasn't going to gain that much, but he ended up making a couple of moves and making something out of nothing. So hopefully him as well as Javon Baker, they're looking at those guys as, being key contributors on the offensive side of the ball. So, and then the Patriots defense in this game, they actually had 5 sacks. So that's the thing. The Patriots defense, we'll see, but probably still going to be good. But it's really just going to come down to the offense. That's really where, we got to see if they improve. And again, my takeaway from last night, it's, what they've been saying. The offensive line just is not up to par right now. And if that doesn't get corrected, like I said, the quarterbacks are going to take a beating. And when Joe Milton came in, he had no time to throw at all. He couldn't do anything. Last week against the Panthers, he made some nice plays, had a clean, had that touchdown pass, but he could get nothing going against the Eagles. He was getting sacked all over the place, especially on his the last drive that he was in. He just could not get anything going. So, but yeah, none of the Eagles starters really played. Kenneth Gainwell played, but that was really it. We didn't really. I think they're going to play next week, but they did not play in this game. We didn't see Jalen Hurts, no A.J. Brown, no Devontae Smith. But we did see the Patriots starters for the most part. We saw Jacoby Brissett. All the quarterbacks played. I thought it was interesting that they put Zappi in at the end. Very last drive. But yeah, just, they ended up getting the loss. That was Gerard Mayo's first loss as a head coach. But again, low-scoring game. The Patriots, their defense, we talked about it in the production meeting, but the Patriots' defense, last year was still good. And they had some games where, it's just the offense could not get anything going. Like, last year they lost to the Giants 10-7. They lost to the Chargers 6-0. The defense played really well. It's just their offense really could not generate any points. And that could be the same issue this year. I mean, drops were a problem in this game for both teams. So, stuff that needs to be corrected. I'm not expecting the Patriots to be very good this year, but you know what? I think you're just hoping to see improvement. And we'll see whenever Drake May takes over. And he did get a little bit more of a runway in this game, and had good moments. So, and like I said, his stats would have been better if Baker holds on to that pass. So, there was things to like, but again, the offense is still, a work in progress. And as for the Eagles, well, we just got to wait and see when we see their whole team take the field. When we see the first strings play, which could be next week. Who knows? I think Jalen Hurts might not play, so he's not playing in the preseason at all, but we'll see. So there's one more preseason game for each of these teams, and then we get to the real deal in a few weeks. So exciting stuff coming up. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about last night's game. What were some of your takeaways? Again, the biggest takeaway is, the offensive line for the Patriots was, not good. But Drake May showed encouraging signs, so that was good. But, close game. Definitely not as high scoring as Super Bowl 52, that's for sure. So we are going to take our first break of the show, and then when we come back, we will continue discussing Week 2 of the preseason. We're going to preview all of the matchups for this weekend. Like I said, we got pretty much every game being played on Saturday, and then a couple of games will be played on Sunday. And, and then we'll be looking towards Week 3, and then got a week off with the NFL, and then we're on to the real deal, which is really exciting stuff, and I just can't believe we're almost at that point already. And then also I got some, fantasy drafts coming up as well. So we are really, we're getting to that point, and I'm really excited that we are at that point because it's been a long off season, and I've said that many times. So when we come back, we will discuss the rest of the Week 2 slate for the preseason. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh,
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are now going to take a look at the rest of the Week 2 slate for the preseason. So like I've been saying, most of the games are being played on Saturday, which is tomorrow. And then you got 2 games on Sunday being played at the same time. So let's get into the slate here. So the Giants and the Texans will be facing off. Texans are 2.5-point favorites. I think it seems like Daniel Jones is going to play in this game. And if you remember last week, Drew Lock ended up getting hurt. I believe it was a hip injury, so he's going to be out. So they really only have two quarterbacks. They have Daniel Jones and they have Tommy DeVito, of course. So Daniel Jones kind of has to play, which, the Giants might not be. I mean, he probably was going to end up playing anyways during the preseason, but still, I mean, now with Drew Lock being hurt, the Giants probably are a little hesitant maybe, because obviously Daniel Jones is coming back from the ACL injury, although it seems like he is all the way back, because, he has been practicing, but, preseason is meaningless football for him, and they don't want something happening, and then now you only got Tommy DeVito as your only active quarterback, and they're going to have to look to bring somebody else in, but Daniel Jones looks like, I think he's going to play in this game. I think we're going to see the Giants, most of the Giants starters. I know Malik Neighbors, got banged up earlier this week, but it doesn't seem like something that the Giants are too concerned about. Also, Tyrone Tracy, the rookie running back that they got from Purdue, he got carted off the field, but he was back at practice. So that, that's good to hear, because whenever you hear a player getting carted off the field, you think, yep, that's it. They're out. But they're out for the year. But that hasn't really been the case, because it's happened to quite a few players, and for some of them they're back at practice, or it's not an injury that's going to keep them out long term. So, so Daniel Jones could play. We'll see, and we'll see how he is. And, for the Texans, I'm not 100% sure if C.J. Stroud is going to play. Did play that one drive last week against the Steelers and, threw a touchdown to Tank Dell, so that's got to get Texans fans excited. But even if they do play, it's probably going to be for a little bit, but we'll see more of, the Davis Mills and Case Keenums of the world in this game. But, so there's that game. You got the Steelers and the Bills. So Russell Wilson is going to start this game. So we're going to get to see his first action of the preseason. That was dealing with a little bit of a calf injury. And Justin Fields was getting work with the first strings. And we got to see Justin Fields a little bit last week. And, it wasn't great. So we'll see how Russell Wilson is in his first action. The Steelers are 5.5-point favorites against the Bills, and we'll see, if the Bills starters end up playing in that game. And then we got the Falcons, who we will be talking about in a little bit. They'll be taking on the Ravens. We'll see more of Michael Penix. What kind of encore performance he's going to have in this game. For the Ravens, again, we'll see what, if their starters end up. How much of their starters end up playing in this game. The Bengals and the Bears, so we'll see more of Caleb Williams. Will Joe Burrow play? Because he did play against the Buccaneers and threw a touchdown pass to T. Higgins. And still waiting on some updates with Jamar Chase. But, also I'm looking at it now. Tried to hold back the sneeze the best I could there, but failed miserably. Jamar Chase was still not practicing, so we'll see what ends up happening there. I see that Jake Browning is dealing with a little bit of a rib injury, so we'll see if he ends up playing. The Lions and the Chiefs is interesting because apparently when I was watching the NFL Network last night, it seemed like the Chiefs starters, most of them are going to be playing the first half. So we're going to see a lot of them in this game, and that's 4 o'clock Eastern time on NFL Network. So, and the Chiefs and the Lions, that was the game that started off the season last year, and that was a good game. And I thought for the moment that maybe we would see that game as the Super Bowl, but that ended up not happening. And Patrick Mahomes and the offense, I mean, they did okay from the game against the Jaguars before they got taken out. They're not going to have Hollywood Brown. He's going to be out, but he's not going to require surgery. But it's just unfortunate that he got hurt on the very first play of their preseason game against the Jaguars last week. So, but they're 7-point favorites, and we'll see. With the Lions, how many of their starters are going to play. Jahmyr Gibbs is dealing with his, I think, hamstring injury, but they're saying it's not that serious. So we'll keep an eye on that. The Vikings and the Browns. Also, Browns are 3-point favorites. Will we see Deshaun Watson? We saw all the other quarterbacks last week. And then for the Vikings, you got Sam Darnold and Jaren Hall. There's no J.J. McCarthy now. So I'm assuming we'll see Darnold again in that game. Got the Colts and the Cardinals. I'm assuming we'll see more of Anthony Richardson in this game. They played all of their quarterbacks. I think they played like 5 quarterbacks in the game against the Broncos. The Cardinals, will we see Kyler Murray? Maybe. The Colts are 1.5 favorites in that game. Dolphins are 5-point favorites against the Commanders. Again, I know I'm reading the lines, but I'm just doing that just to add more to the games here. But yeah, Jane Daniels didn't look bad in his debut. He scored a touchdown in his first drive. The Dolphins, how many of the starters are we going to see there? They got the win against the Falcons last week in week 1 of the preseason. We'll see. We got the Titans and the Seahawks as well. That's in Tennessee. Jets and Panthers. Not going to see any Aaron Rodgers, but we'll probably see Tyrod Taylor, the other quarterbacks as well. Will Bryce, I think, is Bryce Young going to play for the Panthers? I would like to see if he ends up playing. And then we got the 2 LA teams going at it. Rams and the Chargers. Got the Buccaneers and the Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence is not going to be playing in that game. I saw that CJ Beathard's going to get most of the workload there. Cowboys and the Raiders will be the last game on Saturday night. That'll be in Vegas. So we'll see more of the quarterback battle. That's one of the more intriguing battles this preseason. Who's going to end up getting that? And then on Sunday, you got the Packers and the Broncos. So we'll probably see all 3 quarterbacks play for the Broncos again. And for the Packers, we'll see if Jordan Love ends up playing. Listen, we saw that play to Dontavian Wicks last week, so maybe that's the only preseason action we see with Jordan Love. And then you got the Saints and the 49ers. Like I said, both games will be played at the same time on Sunday. So one of them is going to be on Fox, the Saints and the 49ers, and then on NFL Network you'll have the Packers and the Broncos. So we'll see how many of the starters play for both of those teams. Because for the Saints, I know Derek Carr played a little bit. For the 49ers, we'll see. But yeah, that's the slate for this weekend. And I'm not going to give you any predictions on what I think who's going to win because it's the preseason. But that's just, to get you prepared. And then we got one more week of preseason games. We got Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime, the Colts and the Bengals. Also have the Chiefs and the Bears as well being played. 3 games on Friday, handful of games Saturday, and then 3 games on Sunday. And then we're off for a week with the NFL, and then we're back for the real deal. So looking forward to all that. It's coming up fast. But let me know what you guys think, though, about the games for this weekend. What are you most excited about for this weekend? Any, with the quarterback battles, any of the young guys you're going to be paying close attention to in these games. I know a lot of people are just, not big fans of the preseason, which I understand. But, hey, it's football. So I'm excited either way. So, anyways, before we go to break, I just want to remind you guys again that if you want to tip or donate to the show, make a contribution to the show, you can hit the little donate symbol, the chat $ symbol in the chat, and it'll allow you to show a super chat on the live broadcast. I'll make sure to acknowledge it on the broadcast, and it just makes the show better. It makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate your guys' viewership each and every day, and it's just a great way to contribute to the show. We appreciate that. And also, there's the link, gsmcpodcast.net, if you'd rather do that. But that will take you away from the video, and you'll be on a separate site. But once again, we appreciate your guys' viewership each and every day. And, like I said, it's a great way to contribute to the show and make the show more entertaining. So we are going to take our next break, and then when we come back, we will talk about Justin Simmons signing with the Atlanta Falcons. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the third part of the show, we are now going to talk about the Falcons making more moves and signing Pro Bowl safety Justin Simmons, who spent his entire career with the Broncos. So they signed him, and I did bring up yesterday, we talked about them trading for Matthew Judon. Now, the one thing I'll say with that is, there's no movement on a new contract. So that's something to keep an eye on, because could we end up seeing a situation similar to what we're seeing with the Jets and Hassan Reddick? Now, that remains to be seen, but that's just something to make note of. But as of right now, they just got him. But that's already people are bringing that up. So Justin Simmons, he was a free agent for a while. It was interesting that nobody. I would have thought he would have got signed just because he's been a good player. And here's some of his stats: 30 interceptions, 603 tackles, 5 forced fumbles. The Falcons signed him to a 1-year, $8 million deal, and now he will be joining a backfield. Well, not a backfield, but defensive backfield with now Jessie Bates. They pair him up with Jessie Bates, who they got from the Bengals in the previous offseason. And that's a nice little tandem that they got there. And once again, we looked at the Falcons, and I think a lot of people just pointed to the defense as, that side of the ball that needed improvement. And what the Falcons have done the last couple of days is they added a couple Pro Bowlers. They got Matthew Judon, and now they get Justin Simmons in the secondary. You got a pass rusher and a DB. And, suddenly you're looking at this Falcons defense a little bit differently. Now, Justin Simmons is, a little bit older, but, I think still got some good football left. And like I said, you're forming a duo now with Jessie Bates and A.J. Terrell as well, their top corner. So, you're looking at that Falcons defense a little bit differently, and could be a better unit in 2024. And, for me, looking at this division as a whole, I just think that the Falcons have gotten better. The Saints and the Buccaneers, I feel like have, kind of stayed the same. The Panthers have gotten better, but again, how much better? I still think they're going to be, the team that finishes in last place. But, and then that could all change. Now, the Buccaneers, I say they stayed the same, but they brought back all of their guys that got them to the playoffs last year. So it's not like they, didn't do anything. They brought everybody back. They brought back Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, Antoine Winfield Jr., Levante David. They got everybody back, but they still kind of stayed the same. The Saints, they finished the season strong last year, but they kind of stayed the same as well. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But I just think the Falcons right now are the team to win this division. If Kirk Cousins stays healthy, I think he's going to put up good numbers. And they should win. And I think this is the team to win the division, but only time will tell. Got to see how Raheem Morris is as the head coach. And Kirk Cousins is working his way back from the Achilles injury. So, but I think this was a good move, and it's a 1-year, $8 million deal, so it's, this isn't going to kill them by any means. If it doesn't work out, he's not going to be on the team long term. But I think this was a good move for them. And yeah, but he fills the void left by safety DeMarco Helms, who was out for a significant amount of time due to an ankle injury. So, that was one of the reasons why this move was made. But, yeah, this, bring him in on a cheap deal. You take that. So, let me know what you guys think, though, about this move, though, for the Falcons. How do you feel about it? Because, Justin Simmons was out there for a while. I think he went for a visit with the Saints recently, and obviously that didn't happen. I know there was maybe a little bit of speculation that what if he goes back to the Broncos, but that ended up not happening. So, it definitely, this is a move that definitely will help them. And I wanted to take a look at Jessie Bates' stats because, they brought him in last offseason. He had 6 interceptions last year. He did have a pick 6, 132 combined tackles. He had 3 forced fumbles, 89 solo tackles. So he is coming off of a solid first year with the Falcons. He's 27 years old. But yeah, that's the combination that you're going to have with him and Justin Simmons now. And like I said, you also have A.J. Terrell. So we'll take a look at his stats from last year as well. And last year he had 45 combined tackles. No interceptions on the season. He played in almost 17 games last year. But yeah, didn't have a pick last year. Didn't have a pick the year before that either. He had one in 2020 and 3 in 2021. But yeah, if you look at so now with the Falcons depth chart, adding Simmons, so you got Grady Jarrett, David Onyemata, Matthew Judon, A.J. Terrell, Justin Simmons, Jessie Bates, Mike Hughes, D. Alford. That's what you got on the defensive side of the ball. So, the Falcons, they've tried to, rebuild this defense the past couple of years. So, hopefully, with Judon and now with Justin Simmons, they really contribute and build this defense back up. So, because again, you like the pieces on the offensive side of the ball, but now, let's see what they do defensively. How is this unit going to be? I think it's going to be better. Because when I went over the sack numbers from last year and, talking about Judon being brought in and, he had 15 and a half sacks, not last year, but the season before that, that's going to help out the defense tremendously. And that's going to make the other players around Judon better. So we'll see how they look when they play the Steelers week 1, because that's the week 1 matchup right there. So we'll get to see Kirk Cousins and Russell Wilson squaring off. And we'll see, they'll be going up against, Kirk Cousins will be going up against a good defense in the Steelers defense. So that's one of the more intriguing matchups for week 1 is the Falcons and the Steelers, because you got 2 quarterbacks on new teams, and you also got Arthur Smith, who's going to be coaching against his former team now as the offensive coordinator of the Steelers. So I'm looking forward to that. It should be an interesting game, and that game is in Atlanta. So I think the Steelers were another team that maybe was interested in Simmons as well, because you could have had him and paired him up with Minkah Fitzpatrick. That could have been a good safety duo. But yeah, he gets brought in with the Falcons. Yeah, they are really making moves. So and I just wanted to look at, I know we got some of his stats up here, but I wanted to also just look at, go more in depth. Because last year with the Broncos, he had 53 solo tackles, 2 forced fumbles, 3 interceptions, played in 15 games. I mean, for the most part, he has stayed relatively healthy. Played in 13 games his first 2 seasons, 16 the next 3, 17 in 2021, 12 in 2022, and 15 in 2023. Between 2020 and 2022, 5 interceptions, and then 6 in 2022. Has 1 pick 6 in his career. That was back in 2017. Does have 4.5 sacks in total over the course of his career. So, yeah, I mean, listen, he's 30 years old. He's going to be 31 in November. So, yeah, getting older now, but, again, still got some productive years left, I would imagine. So, but, yeah, I think this is a good pickup for the Falcons. Again, does it really move the needle, though, in the grand scheme of things with the other teams in the NFC? Still don't think so. But they're going to be a good team. They are going to be a good team this year. They're going to finish with a better record than they did last year. That's for sure. What did they go, 7-10? Reverse that. I think 10 wins is what they end up getting. I think that's going to be good enough to win this division. So let me know what you guys think, though, about that. So when we come back from our next break of the show, we will talk about a couple of things. We'll talk about Brandon Ayuk. We'll also talk about Matt Milano of the Buffalo Bills getting hurt and being out indefinitely, which it just seems like he just unfortunately can't catch a break. So we'll get into both of those things when we come back from our next break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the fourth part of the show, just a couple things we're going to discuss. We'll talk more about Brandon Ayuk as well as talking about Matt Milano of the Buffalo Bills. So, right now, Ayuk is still with the 49ers. I know earlier in the week we talked about how there was a deal in place with the Steelers, and he it's possible he's going to end up going there, but that hasn't happened yet. However, Ayuk has, was spotted at practice. He was dressed in team colors. He was with teammates. He was, interacting with them and John Lynch, the general manager. So, I don't know what's going on. Is he coming back? Is he getting traded? What is happening right now? Because we hear earlier in the week that they got a trade that's in place. He could be going to Pittsburgh. But you also heard that they were negotiating with him still. So I don't know what's going on. But I can tell you this. I don't know anything. that's really what it comes down to. Is we don't know. We don't know. I don't know. And now he's in 49ers gear at practice. So does that mean that things are moving towards a possible extension? Like, what is happening? It's just, this has been going on for too long. And, next week is the final week of preseason. Then we got the week off, and then we're in the regular season. So, there's got to be a resolution coming. My guess is that next week, next week I think is when we're going to get a resolution. I think it's either they're going to come to an agreement or he's going to end up getting traded. It's going to happen sometime next week. That's my prediction. Now, it's not really that bold, but how much longer is this going to, keep going on for? Because, I don't think the 49ers, both sides don't want to be dealing with this. But, at some point, the 49ers are going to want to move forward. And that's going to be with or without Ayuk. Now, they have constantly been saying they don't want to trade him. But now we hear, he's possibly being shopped at the draft. And, now the deal with the Steelers, it's a possibility that ends up happening. So, we don't really know. But I just know this, speaking for myself and probably for whoever's watching this, we just want there to be a resolution. Just get us somewhere where this ends. Because, it's just people are getting tired of hearing about it. So, like I said, he's at practice, so we'll see if a deal ends up getting made, whether it's a trade to the Steelers or he gets a new contract with the Niners. Listen, he had a chance to go to the Patriots. The Patriots were willing to offer him whatever he wanted. It's just he didn't want to go there because, the Patriots are not in the best position right now to compete, not even a championship, but just a playoff spot. So he doesn't want to go there. And I don't know what, the Browns were a team that was mentioned that they could have, flipped Amari Cooper for Ayuk. But that didn't happen. The Steelers, they got a deal in place. Now it's just up to, do the 49ers want to trade him or not? Or are they going to be able to get a deal done? So, again, just continuing to play that waiting game. But it's just, can we just get to the point where it ends? That's what we want. That's what we want. But the other thing I wanted to discuss too was Matt Milano of the Buffalo Bills. And he recently suffered a torn bicep during a tackling drill in Tuesday's practice. He's going to undergo surgery, out indefinitely. He could come back in early December, though it remains uncertain. And this is a guy that has dealt with injuries over the last couple of seasons. He's a big part of their defense. And this is the second consecutive season that he's faced a major injury. He fractured his leg in week 5 of last year. That kept him out for the rest of the year. And, the Bills have gone through some changes this offseason. And, they're and Matt Milano was still one of the, core pieces on defense that was still there. But he unfortunately gets hurt again. So who knows if he comes back in December, the playoffs maybe. But, it's, however you look at this injury, it's a blow in some capacity to the Bills defense. But yeah, since becoming a full-time starter in 2018, Milano has struggled with injuries. He has never completed a full regular season. So yeah, injuries have been a problem for him. And we'll take a look at the last few seasons. So he played in 5 games last year, 15 in 2022, 16 in 2021, 10 in 2020, 15 in 2019, 13 in 2018, 16 in 2017. But yeah, 5 games last year because of the broken leg, and now, it's going to be out probably the whole season. But the other thing, too, is he was out for that much, he was out for a long time last year, and the Bills, they still finished as the number 2 seed in the conference. So despite that, they still ended up finishing with a good record and, as a top 2 seed in the AFC. Now, did that amount to anything? No, because they ended up losing to the Chiefs in the divisional round. But it still is a blow to this team, however you want to look at it. But like I said, he missed all that time last year, and they still finished with a good record and made the playoffs. So I think people are just banking on. People do believe that the Bills, despite certain guys that they lost on the defensive side of the ball, losing Stephon Diggs, trading Stephon Diggs, that this team is still going to be good, and they're going to be good enough where they're going to make the playoffs. And I'm going to make my predictions when we get closer to the regular season on who I think is going to make the playoffs, who I think is going to miss out. It is hard for me to say the Bills are going to miss the playoffs just because, they still got the quarterback that can will them to the playoffs. But, it's possible that they miss out. Anything is possible. But, yeah, I still think this injury does hurt. I mean, it hurts him too. I mean, he wants to be out there with his teammates. It's just, these last couple of years now, it's been tough. So, yeah, just another unfortunate injury early on here in this 2024 campaign. I mean, again, we just can't shake him, man. It's just every year it's going to happen. So, but yeah, those are a couple of things that I wanted to touch upon and discuss because, the Milano injury is unfortunate, and Ayuk, we're moving towards something. We're moving towards something, but we just want to get there already. That's really what it comes down to. I mean, for the 49ers, if he ends up going, other guys are going to have to step up. Same thing with the Bills. Same thing with the Bills. I mean, some of the younger guys are going to have to step up. I mean, Von Miller, is he going to turn back the clock and be a force on this defense? He's getting older. That remains to be seen. But, you still, well, I know, looking at their defense right now, I know when I was watching the Bills Bears game the other day, yeah, Ed Oliver gets hurt, I think on the very first play. Because the Bears got the ball first. He got hurt in one of the first plays of the game. He's a big piece on the defensive line. But yeah, they still got AJ Epinesa, Greg Rousseau. Rasul Douglas had a good year for them last year when they got him over from the Packers. we'll see how the defense is. But, yeah, I mean, losing Matt Milano, again, is just, it's unfortunate. And Sean McDermott had some comments on it as well. So, actually, let me get into what he had to say before we go to break here. He said, Matt's a strong young man. I know he's going to handle this. It's certainly tough, especially coming off of the year he came off of already. The good thing is he's got a good family behind him that's going to support him, teammates that are going to support him, as well as a coaching staff and our entire football organization. He's resilient, and we've got to be resilient. We've got to move forward and be focused on solutions. So that's what McDermott had to say on the Milano injury. But, yeah, it's unfortunate. Probably going to be out the whole year. So, but yeah, just wanted to touch upon these two topics here. And, yeah, so we got one more segment on the show today. So that will be the rankings of the receiver groups in the AFC North. So that is what we are going to cover when we come back from our final break of the show already. And then I'll take us right into the weekend. So, and that's... I talk up this division all the time, how it's the best in football. So we'll get into it, discuss it, the wide receivers for this division, and that'll be the end of the show for today. So for one final time today, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the final part of the show, we will get into ranking the wide receiver groups within the AFC North. Now, if you're new to this, I've been ranking the wide receiver groups as a whole. Not the individual wide receivers within the division. It's the entire wide receiver core, because I feel like some people have been getting a little confused by that, because especially with my NFC North rankings, there seems to be a little bit of confusion. But it's the entire wide receiving core. So this division was kind of tough. Well, at least 3 and 4 between the Ravens and the Steelers. For the Ravens, they didn't have a 1,000-yard receiver last year. When I think about the Ravens, I feel like Mark Andrews... Now, again, it's the receivers. So Mark Andrews is not a receiver. He's a tight end. Now, he is a pass catcher, like the receivers, but Mark Andrews is a tight end. So Mark Andrews does not factor into these rankings. So when it comes to the Ravens, Mark Andrews is kind of like the number one receiver in this offense. Now, because he's a tight end, he's not included. So last year, you had Zay Flowers, you had Odell Beckham Jr., Nelson Aguilar. Now, Odell is with the Dolphins, so he's no longer there. They did pay Rashad Bateman, so they're hoping that this year, he really does contribute. Because the top 3 wide receivers on the depth chart is Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, and Nelson Aguilar. Zay Flowers last year, 858 yards receiving, 5 touchdowns, had a good rookie season. Rashad Bateman last year, 367 yards receiving, 1 touchdown. Nelson Aguilar, 381 yards and 4 touchdowns. I thought Aguilar was okay for them. He had a touchdown in the playoffs as well. But those are your top 3 right there. And then they also have Tylan Wallace, who ran back that punt return in the overtime victory over the Rams last year. They also have Deontay Hardy. But yeah, those are your top 3. But yeah, with the Ravens though, like I said, Mark Andrews, the tight ends are more of a presence in that offense. And on top of that, I think they're going to be running the ball a ton with Derrick Henry, and Lamar Jackson, of course, will be carrying it himself. And now the Ravens, they did throw the ball more than they have in more than they've had in in years past. But I just think that they're more of a run first team. So that and just I kind of like the other receiving cores better in this offense. So I kind of put them at 4. So at 3 I got the Steelers. Now the Steelers, they have some question marks with their receiving core as well. I mean, they do have a stud in George Pickens, but I outside of him, there's some questions because they did go and they traded Deontay Johnson, so they need another receiver to step up, and be that number 2. They drafted Roman Wilson out of Michigan, but they brought in other veteran guys. They brought in Van Jefferson, Quez Watkins, Scotty Miller. They got Calvin Austin there, who did make some plays for them last year, but yeah, the receiving core is kind of lacking as well. But with George Pickens, you got a stud there. Last year he had over 1,100 yards receiving. Excuse me. 1,140 yards receiving and 5 touchdowns. And that was with, you had Kenny Pickett starting, you had Mitchell Trubisky starting, and Mason Rudolph. They had a quarterback carousel last year. But despite that, still finished with over 1,000 yards and, put together a nice season. He had that game, that monster game against the Bengals towards the end of the year. Well, really, towards the end of the year, he had a couple of monster games. Even against the Seahawks, too, he had a big game as well. I just wanted to take a look at his stats towards the end of the year. So against the Bengals, he had 195 yards receiving. Against the Seahawks, he had 131 yards receiving. So, yeah, a couple of monster games there. But the interesting thing is, against the Ravens, which is what, they ended up clinching the playoffs against them when the Ravens just played all their backups in Baltimore. He didn't have a single catch or a single target. He had a carry in the game, but he didn't do anything in that game, really. But yeah, those last two games against the Bengals and the Seahawks, he had a couple of monster games. And then early on in the season, had a good game against the Rams, against the Ravens the first time. He had 130 yards receiving, and he also had a touchdown in that game. Had a good game against the Browns, over 100 yards. But yeah, when Mason Rudolph took over, outside of the last game of the season, he played really well. And we'll see now with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields how he does. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of why I put the Steelers ahead of the Ravens a little bit, just because of, George Pickens. And, maybe if they get Brandon Ayuk, that'll change things as well. But yeah, so I got the Steelers at 3. At 2, I got the Browns. Amari Cooper is their number 1 receiver. They did bring in Jerry Jeudy as well. Elijah Moore was there last year. But yeah, Amari Cooper last year. Amari Cooper is one of the more underrated receivers in the league. Last year, finished with 1,250 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns on 72 receptions. And look at what he had. Similar to George Pickens, you had Deshaun Watson and Joe Flacco, DTR, PJ Walker. You had all these quarterbacks starting, and Amari Cooper still finished with over 1,000 yards. Was productive. Now you're hoping Deshaun Watson comes back and, stays healthy. So, we don't have to go through that again. But it was an impressive season for him. And then you bring in Jerry Jeudy. Last year he had 758 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. You're hoping that maybe the Browns can unlock something with him. They gave him that 3-year extension. So, you're hoping that, he could play well. Because I know he's a player that people are expecting a little bit more from, but that just has not been the case. So, I think he could be okay with the Browns. And then on top of that, you got Elijah Moore. Last year, he had 640 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. So that's your receiving core right there. And then you still got some other guys as well. I know Tillman, the guy they drafted. I think he's going into his second year. So last year, 224 yards receiving. So he's kind of like, I guess he's the number 4 receiver. You got David Bell. I know he had a touchdown, I believe, last year, late in the season. Yeah, that was against the Jaguars. He had a couple of touchdowns against the Bengals in the final game of the regular season. So that's kind of your receiving core. But yeah, I would put them at number 2. And then at number 1, it's kind of no surprise, it's the Bengals, with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. And this could be the last time that we see these two guys playing alongside each other. Both guys are looking for new contracts, and Jamar Chase is going to get his new contract. T. Higgins will get his, just not with the Bengals, most likely. And we're hoping that Joe Burrow can stay healthy this year, because if he can, these two are going to have really good seasons. And they still put together good numbers, even with Joe Burrow first of all, he didn't start off the year great with the calf injury, but then he got hurt again, but they were still able to put together productive seasons. Jamar Chase last year, 1,216 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns. And then for T. Higgins, he got banged up a little bit last year. He ended up finishing last year with 656 yards receiving and 5 touchdowns. He played in 12 games. But, the previous 2 seasons with Jamar Chase finished with over 1,000 yards. 1,091 receiving yards in 2021, 1,029 receiving yards in 2022. So, I expect them with Burrow. They're going to put up good numbers once again. And then you got some other guys, Jermaine Burton they drafted, Trenton Irwin. Joe Burrow is expecting, Andre Iosivas. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but the other receiver to have a big year, maybe be that number 3 guy. I hope that's how you pronounce it. But mainly it's because of T. Higgins and Jamar Chase why this is, the best receiving core in the division. So, but yeah, just kind of go through it again. Ravens 4, Steelers 3, Browns 2, and the Bengals at 1. Let me know what you guys think, though, about the rankings for these receiving cores in this division. How would you rank the receiving core for the teams in the AFC North here? So that basically takes us to the end of the show today. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back again on Monday. Make sure to check out all the other shows on the network. We greatly appreciate your viewership every day. Hope everybody has a good weekend. And enjoy the games if you watch them. And then next week, we got college football starting. And then, 2 weeks we got college football starting. No, actually, it's starting relatively soon. It's next week. Next weekend, I believe. I don't even know. I lose track of the days. But, so it is, so it does start next week. And then, then we get the real deal of the NFL regular season coming up. You got so I mean that first week is going to be insane because you got the Ravens and the Chiefs, then you got the Packers and the Eagles, then you got college football, and then you got NFL Sunday. So jam packed. So we're getting there, slowly but surely. So yeah, that is all the time we have for today. Once again, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back again on Monday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And until then, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys on Monday. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.